All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something that's, well, it's a little bit backwards. It's this powerful psychological idea that basically says the harder you try to do something, the more likely you are to fail. I know, it sounds crazy, but it completely flips our whole idea of effort on its head. Check this out. When you try to surface, you drown. When you try to drown, you surface. Now, that strange paradox, it's actually at the very core of this super intense military test. And believe it or not, it holds a massive lesson for all of us. Okay, let's get into it.
So first up, we're talking about the U.S. Navy SEALs. Specifically, one of their most brutal, most grueling psychological tests, the drown-proofing test.
Okay, so here's the deal. The test seems simple enough, right? Survive for 5 minutes in a deep pool with your hands tied behind your back. Yeah, the goal is just to stay alive. But here's the thing. Most candidates fail, and it's not because they aren't strong enough. It's because their own instincts, the very things designed to keep them alive, completely betray them. Their natural reaction is to just fight, to thrash around, desperately trying to keep their head above water. But all that panic, it just torches their oxygen and energy, and pretty soon, they start to drown.
So, what's the secret? The only way to pass this thing has nothing to do with being the strongest swimmer. It's all about following this deeply, deeply counterintuitive process. Instead of fighting the water, you have to relax. You have to let yourself sink all the way to the bottom. Then you just gently push off the floor with your feet, you break the surface just long enough for one quick breath, and then you sink again, and you repeat the whole cycle super calmly. You literally have to tell your screaming survival instinct to shut up and just let go.
And this, right here, this is the whole conflict in a nutshell. It's your survival instinct versus the technique that actually works. Your brain is screaming, fight, get to the surface. But in this crazy situation, that very impulse, that's what leads you to fail. And this principle, this isn't just about a swimming pool. Nope, this applies to, well, pretty much every area of your life.
You see, most of us walk around with a really simple but totally flawed idea about how the world works.
We have this default setting in our brain, right? It's more effort equals more results. Simple. We think the relationship between what we put in and what we get out is just a straight line. Kind of like digging a hole. The more you dig, the deeper the hole gets. Work more hours, you make more money. Walk more steps, you cover more ground. It seems so logical, doesn't it?
And look, for simple, mechanical stuff like that, it's absolutely true. But here's the problem. Life, with all its messy emotions, complicated relationships, and big goals, life is rarely that straightforward. And trying to apply that simple, straight-line logic to the really complex parts of our lives, that's exactly where we get into trouble. So, okay, if life isn't a simple straight line, what is it? Well, it's way better to think of it as 3 different hidden curves of effort.
Okay, curve number 1, the curve of diminishing returns. This is all about stuff we consume, in the moment. The idea is super simple. That first bite is always the best, right? After a certain point, putting in more effort or consuming more just brings you less and less of a reward.
So why does this happen? Well, think about it. Your energy, your dopamine, these are finite resources. That first pastry gives you this huge dopamine rush, but the 10th one? It just makes you feel sick. The first 2 hours of work might be incredibly productive, but that 10th hour, it's just a miserable slog. Pushing it too far, in this case, always leads to a crash in your returns.
All right, now for curve number 2, the curve of compounding growth. This is the complete opposite of the last one. This is for all the stuff that requires patience and delayed gratification. With this curve, the effort you put in at the beginning feels almost useless, but if you can just stick with it, you get these massive exponential payoffs down the line.
The big challenge here, of course, is that you have to grind it out for a long time without seeing much of a reward. I mean, going to the gym 3 times isn't going to transform your body. But going consistently for 3 years? Oh yeah, that absolutely will. This curve is a direct fight against our brain's natural desire for, I want it now.
But what if more effort actually makes things worse? This is what brings us to the most paradoxical and honestly the most important curve of them all. This is the one that brings us right back to that Navy SEAL in the pool.
And here it is, curve number 3, the inverted curve. This is that same exact principle from the drown-proofing test, but it's applied to our inner world, to our psychology. When you directly chase a mental or an emotional state, like happiness, your effort actually becomes counterproductive. The very act of wanting it so badly pushes it further and further away.
Yeah, it's just like a dog chasing its own tail. The faster it runs, the faster the tail runs away from it. Chasing these feelings is a game you literally cannot win. You can never catch it because your act of chasing is the very thing that makes it run away.
I mean, think about it. The more you sit there and tell yourself, I must be happy. Why aren't I happy? The more you're just focusing on the fact that you aren't. The more you desperately try to fall asleep when you have insomnia, the more wide awake and anxious you become. So how in the world do we get out of this trap?
Well, the solution isn't to try harder. The solution is to change the game completely. You have to stop chasing your tail, and instead, you gotta focus on something else. And here's the big mental shift. The key is to move your focus away from the outcome and put it squarely on the process. You stop chasing the state and you start focusing on the actions. Look, you can't force yourself to be happy. It just doesn't work. But you can practice gratitude for 5 minutes today. You can't just will yourself to get rich, but you can save and invest $20 this week.
See, when you're focused only on the outcome, on being happy or being loved, you're just chasing the state. You're stuck on that miserable inverted curve. And all that constant striving, it just hammers home what you don't have, which leads to frustration and this constant feeling of failure. You're just that dog running faster and faster and getting absolutely nowhere.
But when you shift your focus to the habit, to the process, you start enjoying the process. And that, my friends, is the magic move. Because that's how you jump off that self-defeating inverted curve and onto the incredibly powerful compounding growth curve. And all of a sudden, the things you wanted so badly, the happiness, the wealth, the health, they stop being things you desperately chase. Instead, they become the natural byproduct of the system you've built for yourself.
So the big takeaway is this. You have to let yourself drown in the process. Accept the struggle, put your focus on your habits, day in and day out, and just let the outcome take care of itself. Just like that Navy SEAL, you have to let go in order to survive and to thrive. You have to stop fighting the water.
So it gets you thinking, right? What if the very thing you're fighting against is actually the path forward? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.